Don't get your hopes up, sweetheart, my mom said, cutting vegetables like she was slicing through my confidence. They don't hire people like you for those fancy positions. Dad laughed without looking up from his phone. Yeah, corporate America wants polish, not potential. My brother snorted. Maybe she'll get a consolation prize, like an unpaid internship. Their laughter filled the kitchen like static, loud, pointless, burning. That night, I stayed up staring at my laptop, rereading the email. The one that began with "Congratulations, welcome aboard. HY everyone, my name is Lauren Hale, I'm 27. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Have you ever realized your biggest victory can sound like an insult in your family's ears? When I told them I'd landed my dream job, an associate manager role at a top New York firm, no one clapped. No hugs. No "we're proud of you." Mom just said, "Don't let it go to your head," and walked off to post about my brother's softball trophy. So when my first paycheck hit, I did what any daughter craving peace would do. I invited them to dinner. A proper celebration. My treat. I picked the rooftop restaurant where city lights looked like tiny promises. I even reserved a corner table overlooking the skyline. I waited. And waited. The candles burned out before my hope did. No texts. No calls. Just silence. I ordered dessert alone, chocolate mousse for 4, and watched couples laugh, families clink glasses. The server asked softly, "Will the rest of your party be joining soon?" "They won't," I said, my voice barely holding steady. A week later, my phone buzzed. Venmo request. Mom, $3,400 for Dad's retirement party popper. Caption, family helps family. I stared at the amount. My chest went hollow. So I sent 1 cent, with a note. Congrats. And that's when everything changed. The next morning, pounding echoed through my apartment door, hard, sharp, relentless. Open up. NYPD. My coffee cup slipped from my hand. And as the brown puddle spread across the tiles, I realized, my family hadn't just abandoned me. They'd declared war. If this ever happened to you, say same in the comments. I froze. The pounding got louder. Open the door, a voice barked from the hallway. My pulse thundered in my ears. I swung the door open, half expecting chaos. 2 officers stood there, one tall, one tired, both wearing the kind of expression that said we've done this too many times. Lauren Hale. Yes. You're listed in a harassment report. Filed by your parents. My throat went dry. What? The taller one checked his notes. They claim you've been sending threatening messages and financial intimidation through digital means. I almost laughed, except it came out broken. Sir, I sent them 1 cent. He raised an eyebrow. Guess they didn't appreciate the sentiment. After a brief inspection, they left. No charges. No handcuffs. But humiliation lingered in the air like smoke. When the door shut behind them, I just stood there, hands shaking over spilled coffee and unpaid respect. I opened my phone, a flood of missed messages. Mom, how could you humiliate us like that? Dad, you think you're better than family now? My brother, you asked for this. I stared at their words, each one slicing deeper than the last. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed every birthday I'd paid for, every bill I'd quietly covered when Dad's business deals failed, every gift I bought so they wouldn't feel poor next to their friends. And now, I was the villain in their story. The next morning, I called HR to confirm something I'd been dreading. Has anyone contacted the office about me? The pause on the other end said everything. Yes, someone emailed claiming you falsified your credentials. We ignored it, but you should know. I didn't need to ask who. I hung up, leaned back in my chair, and looked out the window. The skyline that once looked like freedom now felt like a trap made of glass. If they wanted a villain, maybe it was time I stopped playing the good daughter. By noon, I was sitting in the company cafeteria, staring at my reflection in the stainless steel spoon. I looked fine on the outside, clean blazer, calm smile, but inside, everything was trembling. My phone buzzed again. Mom, you made this family look like beggars. We raised you better. Dad, you'll regret cutting ties. Blood runs deeper than paychecks. Brother, you really sent only cent? face with tears of joy, "You're insane." I locked my phone. Then, without thinking, I whispered to myself, "No, I'm finally sane." At lunch, my coworker Dana sat beside me. "You okay? You've been quiet." I wanted to lie. Instead, I said, "My parents called the cops because I didn't send them money." She blinked. "Wait, seriously?" "Yeah." "What did they say?" "That I'm the family disgrace with good Wi-Fi." She snorted a laugh, then caught the sadness under it. "You don't owe them peace, Lauren. You owe yourself safety." That sentence stayed with me all afternoon. When I got home, I made tea, cinnamon and honey, the kind my mom used to brew when I was sick. The smell hit memories I didn't ask for. Dad fixing the car while I held the flashlight. Mom teaching me to make pie crust. Laughter before it turned sharp. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't erase the love, it just poisons it. I opened my laptop, opened Venmo again, and scrolled through my payment history. I'd been funding their lives for years: rent, loans, car repairs, emergency medical bills. I totaled it up. Over $29,000. And not a single thank you. So I began drafting an email, polite, firm, final. Subject: financial boundaries. I typed every truth I'd avoided for years. How their guilt worked like a leash. How every favor became a debt I never owed. How this time, I was choosing myself. When I hit send, the silence that followed wasn't empty, it was clean. But peace doesn't last long in my family. By the next morning, my inbox had a new subject line. Legal notice, family defamation claim. The email looked official: scanned documents, fake legal letterhead, and a signature that wasn't even spelled right. But still, my stomach dropped. Defamation? They were accusing me of publicly shaming the family and misrepresenting private matters to external parties. Translation: I'd told the truth. I called my friend Marisol, who worked at a law firm downtown. "Send it to me," she said, her tone calm but clipped. A few minutes later, she called back laughing. "This isn't a real notice. It's a template from an online generator. They didn't even change the watermark." My relief came out as a shaky laugh. "So they're not suing me?" "No, but they want you scared. Classic manipulation tactic. Don't respond, okay?" I promised I wouldn't. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, if they were willing to fake legal documents, what would they do next? The next day, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a handwritten letter, my mother's looping script. "Lauren, you've humiliated us beyond repair. Your father hasn't eaten since you sent that penny. Do the right thing, apologize, delete whatever lies you've spread, and send the money so we can move on as a family. Don't make us escalate this further." I stared at her words until they blurred. Apologize. Delete. Send money. 3 commands that summed up my entire childhood. That's when something inside me broke, not in anger, but in clarity. I opened my laptop again, but this time I didn't write to them. I wrote to myself. A document titled Proof. Screenshots, messages, Venmo records, fake letters, police visits, everything. I wasn't going to fight back with rage. I was going to fight back with receipts. When I was done, I saved it all in a private cloud folder. Then I whispered to the quiet room, "You want a war? You'll get an archive." The next morning, my manager called me in. "Lauren, someone sent an anonymous email to HR, claims you're mentally unstable and under police investigation." I smiled faintly. "Yeah," I said. "I know exactly who did." My manager's eyes softened, but concern sat heavy in her tone. "We just wanted to check in, Lauren. You're doing great work. But it's concerning." I nodded slowly. "I understand. It's a personal matter, and it's being handled." She leaned forward. "Is it family?" My silence was answer enough. "Take the afternoon off," she said. "Sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones who drain us." Her words hit harder than I expected. I walked out of the building and into the October air, cold enough to sting, real enough to ground me. I wasn't crying. I was just done pretending. That evening, I went through my old storage box, the one labeled home. Inside were years of cards, photos, and fading apologies. Birthday note signed "We're proud of you" right before they'd borrowed money again. I tore none of it up. I just placed them all neatly back inside and sealed the lid. Because closure doesn't always come from destruction, sometimes it comes from preservation. At 9 p.m., my brother texted. "Mom says you're embarrassing the family again. Delete the stuff or she'll go public." I replied simply, "Tell her she already did." Then I opened my proof folder and added the latest messages. I wasn't planning to expose them. Not yet. But if they pushed me, the truth would speak louder than their noise. The next morning, a letter from my building management arrived. "Complaint filed against you for harassment and hostile behavior toward visiting officers." My hands shook. They were trying to get me evicted. I took a deep breath, grabbed my coat, and walked to the police precinct myself. "Hi," I said at the counter. "I think my family's trying to weaponize your department." The officer looked up from his computer. "Name?" "Lauren Hale." He frowned. "We were wondering when you'd come in. There's been a lot of calls from them." I exhaled, half relieved, half afraid. "How many calls?" He sighed. 7, in 10 days. 7. I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. The officer nodded. "Every time, it's something different. Welfare check, noise complaint, domestic threat, none of it adds up. Honestly, it looks like harassment." I swallowed hard. "Can I file something back?" "Absolutely," he said. "You can request a restraining order if it continues. Start documenting every call, every message." I almost laughed. I already had a folder for that. When I left the station, the city looked different. Same streets, same skyline, but it all felt sharper, louder, like the world had finally tilted in my direction. Back at home, I made tea and opened my laptop again. I added a new document, timeline. Every incident, date, message, all lined up like puzzle pieces forming a single, undeniable truth. By midnight, I sent a copy to my lawyer friend Marisol. Her reply came fast. "This is solid. If they contact your employer again or harass you further, we'll go formal. Trust me, we'll handle it." For the first time in weeks, I felt the smallest pulse of peace. The next morning, I opened my blinds to a crisp sunrise, only to find my mother standing on the sidewalk below, phone in hand, pretending to cry. A police cruiser idled beside her. I went still. Within minutes, there was another knock on my door. "Ms. Hale, we received a call from your mother, said you threatened her life over text." I showed them my phone. No such messages. They nodded, apologetic. "We're sorry for the disturbance. It's becoming clear this is false reporting." When they left, I watched through the window as my mom's crocodile tears dried instantly. She looked up, saw me watching, and smiled. Not a warm smile, a challenge. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with family anymore. I was dealing with people who saw me as a resource, not a daughter. And if they wanted to keep playing games, I'd play too. But this time, the rules were mine. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat by the window, watching the street lamps flicker against the glass. The city hummed beneath me, strangers laughing, cabs honking, life moving on, even when yours feels stuck. I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos, birthdays, family vacations, moments that once meant love. I studied their smiles, the ones I used to believe in. Then I whispered to myself, they're not the same people anymore. Or maybe, I'm just finally seeing them clearly. Marisol called around midnight. "I talked to a contact at the department," she said. "They'll start an internal record for harassment. But Lauren, this might take time." "I've got time," I replied. "I've waited my whole life for boundaries." The next day, I called my bank and froze every joint account that still had my name on it. Then I closed my old savings, the one Mom used to borrow from, and moved everything into a trust under my own name. I even contacted my HR department and filed a statement about the harassment, attaching proof. If they wanted to ruin me, they'd have to go through a fortress now. By evening, a text came through from Dad. "You've destroyed this family. You'll be alone forever." I typed back, but my reply wasn't for him, it was for me. Maybe. But at least I'll finally be free. Then I deleted every contact with my last name except mine. Hours later, my brother posted a status online. Money changes people. Especially ungrateful daughters. For the first time, I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled, because truth doesn't need defending. I leaned back, looking at the skyline, and realized something almost poetic. The higher you climb out of their reach, the louder they scream from below. Tomorrow, I'd make my final move. Not revenge, revelation. And it would be quiet enough to echo. The morning light hit my window like a soft truth, clear, calm, undeniable. I made coffee, black and steady, and opened my laptop one last time. The folder labeled proof blinked on my desktop like a heartbeat. Inside it was everything: years of manipulation, screenshots, fake legal threats, bank transfers, police records, the entire trail of emotional warfare. But I didn't post it online. I didn't send it to tabloids. I sent it quietly, to their pastor, to my dad's employer, to the local community association where Mom loved to gossip about how perfect our family was. No captions. No rage. Just truth. By noon, the phone started buzzing. First, Mom. What have you done? Then, Dad. You ruined our reputation. Finally, my brother. Take it all down or you'll regret this. I typed one final message, slow and deliberate. I didn't ruin it. I just stopped protecting the lie. Then I blocked them all, permanently. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. Weeks passed. No police. No letters. No fake lawsuits. Just stillness. My HR department later told me that anonymous complaints about me had stopped completely. My manager smiled when she passed my desk and said, "Whatever storm you were in, it's gone." I bought myself fresh flowers that night, yellow tulips, my favorite since childhood, and placed them on my kitchen table. For once, they didn't wilt before I noticed. Sometimes revenge isn't fire. It's air. It's the breath you finally take when the noise ends. I looked out at the city, lights flickering like forgiveness, and whispered, "I forgive you, but I'll never let you in again." And for the first time in years, that felt like enough.